I waited all day to make this video. It was so hot, and I had the little swamp cooler blasting. The mini fridge was gurgling, as it is now. You could probably hear it. And I decided to be patient and wait for the evening. And there's a kind of induced enlightenment when it's so hot and when it's so cold, and you finally achieve a nice temperature. Suddenly that's all that matters. Instant peace and gratitude. But it's always something, of course. There's no escaping. There's no escaping your feelings. There's only surrendering. And I'm constantly working on this. Life or the universe will mess with us until we surrender, until we let the emotions move through us and not react and try to fix things externally. Today we're going to look at Oregon. As a child, I enjoyed the now very primitive game, the Oregon Trail. But today we're going to see what Oregon was really like. Thanks for being here. God bless and welcome. And the mini fridge has finally stopped. I don't know where to start, and that's part of my formula for making my videos, is not having a formula. And I think that's why it's kind of art. Art can be working on a car, or cooking, or having a conversation. Expressing oneself is a given, whether you're aware of it or not. If you're impatient, then you'll express impatience, and it will be felt by those around you. But if you can just let go and trust in perhaps something deeper than your imposed idea of yourself, what some would call the ego, or the mask. Underneath the mask, there's a part of us that I believe is divine. It's the part of ourselves that we were before we were born, and the part that we'll go back to. But anyway, here I've stumbled upon a great showcase. A little note that I scratched on a piece of paper months ago. And the note said, Portland, Oregon. These photographs we're going to look at today were taken by this man with the name of Minor White. I believe someone did some work at the Chicago World's Fair, and their name was Canvas White. Here he is. Just stupid. These really seem like made-up names to me. Old Canvas here was an engineer and inventor. He designed this aqueduct for New York City from 1837 to 1842. But anyway, today we're looking at a man named Minor White. He made thousands of black and white and color photographs throughout his lifetime. He taught classes in California, Massachusetts, and was born in 1908 and died in 1976. Born in Minnesota in 1932, he still didn't know what he wanted to do. He re-entered university and studied botany and writing. Spent a couple years doing odd jobs and exploring his writing skills. And all this going nowhere, he decides to buy a camera in 1937, hopped on a bus, and headed for Portland, Oregon. He lived at the YMCA and began to explore photography. This is in the first year. In 1938, he was offered a job as a photographer for the Oregon Art Project, funded by the WPA. How convenient. So here this WPA hires this guy with essentially no experience. Only a year before this he bought his first camera. And they give him an assignment to photograph historic buildings in downtown Portland before they were demolished for a stupid riverfront development. So there we go. Whatever. He would only live another 30 years. That's it. This is his first gig, and that's what we're going to explore today. From 1938 to 1940, Minor White photographed the Portland waterfront and iconic cast iron buildings that were soon to be demolished. The negatives include 210 images, which are now available to view in this collection. And here's what somebody said about this collection. In January 2020, I began working as the digital collection assistant at the Historical Society. One of my first projects was to digitize the Minor White negatives. Before working with the collection, I had heard of the photographer, but did not know much about him or his work. As soon as I saw his images of Portland, I fell in love with his photography of a cityscape that no longer exists. Yeah, and so did I. And here we can see a little look in 1939. 1939. So late. And this is my personal theory, is the timeline begins for us even later. We're told all these stories in 1850 and early 1900s, and yet I don't think things really get rolling until the late 1930s, as we see here. Here we have abandoned downtown Portland. So late, so late in the game. 1939, a view of cast iron buildings on Front Avenue. I mean, could you pull this off today? Just get everybody off of the streets, clear out every building? Or has this city been abandoned for at least 100 years? The amazing thing is, it's in absolutely beautiful shape. The streets, no mud, just clean as could be. A little pile of debris here, a couple guys having a chat. So, what do you think we should do with all this? Oh, demolish it. Demolish it? Cast iron buildings looking like this? Who would think of demolishing all of this? A whole city here. Anyway, Minor White. Here, this photographer's first job, hired by the WPA. They send him out to take pictures of this city and these buildings before they demolish everything. Here again, 1930. These were buildings constructed in the mid to late 1800s. They're still so new, according to their narrative. And here we can see how absolutely thick this wall is. How many layers of bricks? At least 3. And these facades, so old, still having glass in them. Looking kind of shiny up here, but the glass on the bottom down here looks very dull, no shine. And in fact, the weathering is much greater down here. The weathering on the windows and facade. And look at this. Here we have square windows, then becoming arched, and then becoming like really arched, cathedral style. And here is just an example of the ornate detail on a chunk of cast iron. Look at this. A piece has broken off, and we still see how thick and dense it truly is. This is no joke here. 1800s building in an old west town whose inhabitants forged rivers with oxen. And back here, this building is missing all its windows and just nobody on the streets. I think this is a child right here. I think. Sad, wondering where everybody is. And they tell us this cast iron pillar was from the Opitz Building. This photo is taken in 1939. How is this possible? Here a picture with some lights. 1939. And Salt Lake has something like this, not far from the temple. Clearly some kind of tech over the top, and really sophisticated buildings. And look down here. Look at the store that somebody has made. What a dump, just not belonging. Even here, a restaurant, eat, great. And then this. And it looks like somebody has refitted these windows. Here we can see some kind of ball, not looking like a light, and right above it, kind of a bell. A really fancy crown for this tech. So here's a cast iron doorway. Look at this thing. And here we can get a feel for something that has happened here. This road and dirt and the paint is peeling off this door here. And was this door the original door? You can see it's a huge opening with how low the handle is. And the door sucks compared to the facade of this building. Super high tech. And what about here? This door doesn't make any sense, but actually looking better than the door below it. And an interesting kind of trident symbol here. I'm not sure. Kind of looking like a type of fleur de lis, and also a little dragon-like. Here, the demolishing has begun, and really we've discussed it in past videos, but I don't think they're demolishing them. I think they're taking them apart and selling off the different parts. You can see here they're stacking the wood nicely, so they're just gonna sell this, salvage as much of the bricks, and probably crush this back up and turn it into Portland cement. But here we go. Interesting. Way back we see a sign 76 gasoline. Really interesting. I always thought 76 gas started in 1976, but here we're in 1930. So now we'll blast through some of these pictures. Here we see the Pioneer Courthouse. Again, the courthouse. The Cook Building door busted up. They have some wood up in this corner in place of a window pane. And look at this detail. I mean, Portland, Oregon could not be any more Old West. And yet that is not what we see here. Not at all. I mean, how does this make any sense? Oh, I live on the 4th floor of that little castle. Here we see the Portland Hotel. Looks like a bunch of brick. And here's Southwest 1st Avenue. So they were telling us these are cast iron facades. But what I see when we zoom in here is brick with a facade on top. Not a very thick one. And what is going on with this facade? Just peeling away, almost dripping. And I don't know. I see some gargoyle action here and here. Okay, so we have a man right here in this building. I mean, come on. How boarded up could it be? It looks like the windows have just been painted. Let's have a closer look. I'm not sure. Either that or they've been doctored. What about this symbol here? Okay, so we have a medical symbol on this abandoned building. Really interesting. The caduceus and some scrolls and super detail. Up here it's been painted. The paint is peeling off, and I think this man is remarking that there's another level under here. Or woman. Actually, I think it is a woman, but has no one to discuss it with. And what about this symbol? Just looking like a spring, but just an artistic depiction of a spring. Here we have some really advanced retractable bridge. I had one of these growing up in Atlantic City as a child. It always fascinated me. And really over the top, looking like some Richardsonian blockage. I mean, nothing cheap here. And the complexity here. An early, abandoned looking Portland. Here they call this the Allen and Lewis block. So here we go. Drying clothes on a line. I mean, having a little house on the prairie experience here. Perhaps fresh off the Oregon Trail. Wishing they could live in one of these little apartments that they're soon gonna demolish. And I like drying my clothes on a line. I haven't done it in years. And mind you, once again, this is all the photography of this man, Minor White, the unexperienced photographer hired by the WPA to showcase the district that they would soon demolish. No, there's nothing strange about that, of course. Really great resolution here. Just a great find. And I don't know. I feel like I don't have to press anything. I would just like to let these images speak for themselves. And as always, let you decide. I mean, what? Did somebody just say, let's buy everybody out. Let's evict every single person in this building, in this building, in this building. They all agree? In 1930, I'd be very happy to live up here. Very high society. For to believe the narrative, rent was probably $1 a month. No, nobody's kicking me out of this building. But what we see is nobody has been freshly evicted. No, these boards have been here for at least 30 years. And again, I believe a lot of these windows that were not busted were simply painted. Somebody was protecting their inheritance until this demolition. Here we can see something that they titled cast iron pillar, and again when I look at it I see brick, more brick, some kind of stucco render, and here maybe this is cast iron. The California Foundry, San Francisco. Would there be any benefit to telling us it's all cast iron? I don't know. Here I think I see my first legitimate building, at least for this era, a little shack. And yet even this shack has been here for a long time. I mean, look at this tree growing right up against it. At least a 50-year-old tree, at least. Here we see one called the Snow Building. Painted windows, very ornate. Here the Lad Building. You can see this wooden knob. Perhaps it's metal, and it has been painted, and then somebody opened it a little too soon before the paint dried. Very crude keyhole right here. Here we see the Cam Building, Cam with a K, and just absolutely overkill again for a young, blossoming Portland, Oregon. I mean, what? And how absolutely sad that something should be so breathtakingly beautiful in young and early Oregon, and it's all set to be demolished. I mean, look at this, even on the inside, the detail. Tech all over the thing. I don't know. Like I said, I would prefer to let this evidence speak for itself. So here's the Opitz Building being demolished. Millions of bricks, and you can see how they're stacking everything. The demolition business was the repurposement business. All of this would be resold as new building material. And here a little zoom in. We see the brick, the mortar, these facades. And I hesitate to look into the history of Oregon as far as the state goes. But no doubt I'll have to. When we see a city like this being demolished, nobody in the streets, I can't help but feel like we're staring at a smoking blank. Look at the sculptures on these columns. Just out of control. Go Portland. Can you imagine? Look at all of this. Chief gets annoyed with me. And he's right. We've seen this before. The Star Block. I think we watched the Star Theater being systematically demolished once. Not the best resolution in this one. Looks like a cornucopia of fruit spilling out of this arch. And here we go. So you want to talk about the people not having the ability to build all of this and move all this material in place. Well, here they are in the 30s, hauling the building away, brick by brick. Here it is. This guy's got pretty good load on here. I imagine he'll probably double it. And these bricks came from the top here. Here we go. Just crudely knocking them off and loading them onto that little truck down there. Little flatbed pickup. An absolute awe this evening. And here again we see the caduceus. Was this a medical building? We have a 6'3" right here. I don't think it's original. And here's a building on Decum and Reed, or the Reed block. So again, the whole building is a block, soon to be demolished. And what a great thing that somehow we're able to see these. Some man or woman only recently, in 2020, found these negatives and made them available, turning them into a digital format for us. Unbelievable. I mean, these are fresh pictures. And thank you, whoever made this possible, whether consciously or unconsciously, serving the good, in my opinion. So here we go. This is the top of this building. And here we can see ironwork, but otherwise just a bunch of brick and cement. And I think I'll just wrap it up with this picture. We see a date of 8/8/4. We see a building that looks to be at least 300 years old, having a very cathedral-like feel. And the windows are bricked up, but yet all the facade has peeled off of the brick, revealing the true age of this building, in my opinion. And here again, they've stacked the usable material, waiting for that flatbed pickup to show up. And finally, the streets are made of 100% brick. Old brick, old rails in place. And I think they turned this into a waterfront development. So perhaps they just flooded everything in after demolition. So that's it. I'm not sure why I am going long on these videos. I guess it's all just really interesting. But there's always next week. I hope you've enjoyed our tour. Thank you for joining me. I love you all. God bless. And I'll see you next week.